Hello and welcome. I'm Christine Dean, your DFW Networking Diva, connecting you to who you want to know. And I am so excited today to have Daniel here because Daniel's somebody you want to know. He and I have this love of networking and what that means. And we're going to fight about that. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fantastic. So, Daniel, tell the audience a little bit more about you, what you do, because I fell in love with you right from the beginning, and I know my audience will too.
Yeah, well, and one of the great things about working through introductions, right, using your network to increase your network, is the fact that you can count on the quality of the introductions, right? When Tim Morgan said we should meet, both of us were like, well, yeah, of course we're going to meet, without any real, hesitation. But you're the closest person to me in terms of understanding and deliverable, and the way you elevate the world and the way they go about the relationship building that they do. But I'm in a position where I bring value into the world based on two principles. The first is that in business, people don't need more connections. They need better connections. And by that, I mean, they need stronger connections with strategic connections. And then the second way that I bring value is people need to know what to do with those people once they've met them, right? How do you mature from casual business card exchange to profitable referral relationship? It's not a long road, but it does take an intentional effort. And I show people what that roadmap looks like. So.
Oh, yeah. See, right after my own heart, right there. There it is. And it's, a lot of times people have connections and they don't know what to do with them, or they just get connections to get them. And then they just sit there. It's like, what was the point then? It's like, okay, well, did you reach out to anybody in your network? Well, no, I didn't want to be. Okay, well, why do you have them? If you're in my connection network, I am going to reach out to you if I see value for you, someone else, and bring people together. That's what I do. So I was like, they're like, well, don't. And I'm like, oh, if you don't want me to communicate with you, you don't want to be connected with me. You just want to unfriend me right now.
Right. And that doesn't mean everybody needs to be a prospect, right? I was watching someone else's LinkedIn thread where somebody basically messaged them and said, if you don't consider yourself ever my prospect, just go in and disconnect, because otherwise I'm going to keep pursuing you like a prospect. And she's like, we've had one interaction ever, right? On LinkedIn. She goes, how short-sighted are you to think that people's only value to you is as a prospect, right? Because number one, you're thinking very selfishly if you're only thinking about their value to you, right? And then number two, you're thinking very short-sightedly if you're only thinking about, whether or not that person can be a prospect. But, people like to give. And so when people decline to ask for connections, introductions, referrals, prospects, they're declining to give other people the joy that they feel in giving, sharing, and connecting. And,
oh, absolutely. And that's a great point, right? People want to help. And sometimes you have to remind people that are very independent, let someone else help you once in a while. It's okay. Yeah. It makes them feel good.
Right. Extreme independence is actually a trauma response, and I'm not a therapist. So go see your counselor if you never allow anybody to help you. There's some damage in your past that you need to fix. But yep. But yeah, right. I do ask people to reflect on the joy they feel when they are able to serve somebody else, right? And that other people want that same joy. Now, and when we say people are willing to help and love to help, that's true. But you also have to make sure that you're worthy of that help. And that doesn't mean that you have to give before you can receive. It means to me that you have to be trustworthy enough, right? Meaning, I have people in my world that if they needed a $100 loan to payday, I would give it no questions asked. And I have other people in my world that if they need a $100 loan to payday, I'd be a little short myself, right?
I'm sorry, it's not a good month for that.
Right.
Next year's not looking real good either.
Exactly. Yeah. What's there's a line from a Ray Charles song, he went to his brother and said, busted it. He goes, oh man, don't hit me up. I was about to come to you. And then, I assume it's probably an urban legend, but the guy says his uncle sent out a text message to all the family. Hey, can anybody loan me any money? And his nephew went to me and said, I didn't know you're hurting. He goes, I'm not, but it keeps them from asking me for money. Right. So, but what it means to be worthy of the connection, the introduction, the resource, whatever it is that you're asking for, means to be the sort of person that will, what's the word I'm looking for? Value that correctly, that will shepherd that correctly, right? That will steward. That's the word I wanted. That will steward that correctly. Not let the introduction sit in your inbox forever before you reply, right? Not give low grade service if a customer or prospect was referred to you. But I don't think it takes a long time to set the credibility in motion that you need to get the referrals that you want. But it needs to be give and take. And this is what's interesting. I was speaking to somebody, he goes, "Oh, I always try to give twice as much as I ask for." And I said, that's a terrible idea. He's like, "What?" I said, "People will pull away from you over time if you're taking twice as much as you're giving, or also if you're giving twice as much as you're taking, because they start to feel guilty and that starts to feel uneven to them. And they might not be able to put a pin in it, as far as why they're pulling away in the second case over the first, but you're actually damaging your relationship if you don't strive for some sense of mutuality."
Right. Some kind of
Sometimes you
balance.
might have to, go ahead.
You don't want a one up, one down relationship. You want to kind of balance that relationship out. And if somebody has to be up or down, somebody's probably going to feel uncomfortable.
Right. Now, in any given moment, one of us is up and one of us is down, right? I got to loan, Fred $100 to payday, a month from now, I need to borrow 100, right? It doesn't make sense for me to loan him $100 and have him loan me $100 at the same moment, right? We're out, right? There are moments when one of us can be more in service to the other, but as long as over time, it doesn't feel perpetually out of whack, right? As time goes by, it needs to feel,
well, and then you set up also expectations. I think clear expectations in a relationship solve a lot of problems. What are we expecting out of this? Okay, like you said, well, at least the guy who said, if you're not going to be my prospect, then you might as well just go away now, right? At least he was clear with his expectations.
Right?
You knew what to expect. You're going to get a hard sale, and that's all you're going to get, right? Where your role is. You're
either my prospect or you're not. And that's their view of the world. Yeah. Right. So yes, expectations. And, I could give, a masterclass on the way expectations show up in all relationships. But, the short version is, it's my personal opinion. And I use this way more often in a personal context than a business context, but it still applies. It's my personal opinion that most of the anger, angst, and upset in the world appears in the gap between what I thought I was going to get and what I got. The way I thought it was going to go down, right? And even Jack Welch said, tell me all and tell me early, right? Which is my long version is, I can handle anything. Tell me what you want me to handle. If you've got me busy solving a problem that's not the problem, then number one, we've wasted time and energy. Number two, I'm really upset when you tell me, well, that wasn't the real objection or the real hurdle or the real backstory. I'm like, why would you ask me to
requires a level of honesty and transparency and authenticity that some people have difficulty with.
Yeah, and I mean, and there are degrees. Now I think we're always called on to have integrity. Past integrity is transparency, right? Let me see if I'm getting this right. So integrity, first level, transparency, second level, vulnerability, third level, right? Now, and again, it's not varying degrees of truthfulness. It's varying degrees of exposure, to
disclosure.
To what it means. Right. But I mean, I was talking with somebody, and again, the backstory is not important, but I said something about the fact that I'm fundamentally unemployable. And I have been my whole life because I do not deal in BS for even a moment. And there's just too much corporate BS. Right. And so I'm not suited to be an employee nor an employer. And somebody said, oh, more people should live that way. And I said, well, here's what will happen if you live authentically. I said, the first thing that'll happen is you'll lose a lot of friends. But those were only people that were pretending to like who you were pretending to be. Mm-hmm. So you got to ask yourself, were those really your friends?
Right.
And then the second is you'll attract men, women, children, cats, and dogs. People are drawn to that authenticity. It'll be a much smaller group, but you'll never have to wonder who your friends are.
Absolutely. And I've got a client I'm working with now with some email issues, and so she's having to rebuild her list, and she's like, my list. I'm like, it's okay, you only want authentic people that are truly interested in what you have to say in there. Mm-hmm. It's okay, let the other ones go if they're not your real fan base, if they're not your real followers, if they're not. That's why the whole buying leads, even the buying of massive email lists, all that kind of stuff. There's nothing authentic about any of that. They have no relationship with you. They have no reason to even want to listen to what you have to say, right? Authenticity. Huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big thing. Yeah. I was just thinking earlier, we had a gal on the masterclass with the Giver Marketing, and she was focusing on nurturing. She's like, all those leads you went through all that trouble to collect. Now what? Right? the nurturing phase, right? And I think that's what we run into a lot, right? So there's finding the people that we want to find and then nurturing them. And it's all tied together. You can't do just half of that equation. You can't nurture somebody that they're not the right people.
Right. I mean, you can, but you're barking up the wrong tree, right? It's a poor use of your energy, right? But I certainly believe that you've got to interact with people at some point, right? Meaning all the impressions in the world create one thing and one thing only: awareness. They don't create credibility. They don't create liability. They don't create true connection or intimacy, right? And when I say that, I'm referring to, of course, professional intimacy, right? The degree that I understand and feel understood by somebody. But, so they're great for exposure. But at some moment, you're going to have to lean into a conversation with people if you want to add those things, right? Now, if you're selling, trinkets on Amazon, right? Okay, right? I've never spoken to anybody at Amazon, probably never want to, right? I'm kind of the driver as he goes by, but, I know I'm going to order what I'm going to order. And I know that if it's not right, I can, drop it off or send it back and get my money back, right? So that's it.
Yeah, a lot of those purchases that we're doing on the consumer level aren't based on relationships, right?
No.
But
right. Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing is thinking about networking. A lot of people like to do, and I'll refer to it as a one and done. Hey, great, let's have a meeting. You have a meeting once, you never talk again. How long did you spend with them? Did they ever make it to your long-term memory even? Are you ever going to have another conversation? Did you follow up in any way, shape, or form, or that's gone? And you think something's going to come out of that.
Right. Okay. Meaning there are a certain number of people that we need to have that first, I call it a quick connect, right? With, paired interview of some sort, breakfast, lunch, coffee, Zoom call, whatever it consists of. And you will have pretty much exhausted your ability to be useful to each other in that moment. Meaning it's finite. I mean, it's limited to start with, or everything you can do, you did in those 20 or 30 minutes. But right. What most people achieve when they're out networking, and this is where you and I, you talk about different uses of the word. And I'll blow that up in a minute because, I'm actually probably going to ultimately dig my heels in on some stuff in my world. Right. But, I'll go to 50,000 feet. My favorite book on the subject, right? This is the subtitle: Stop Networking and Start Building Relationships That Matter. Right. The book Networking Doesn't Work. Right. So networking will always get air quotes or quotation marks if I write it with me, or network as a verb, because it's not getting you what you want. People say they're networking and all they're doing is marketing by hand. They're giving out one business card at a time, one flyer at a time, one handshake at a time, and they're doing nothing other than creating awareness. Okay, you're a person that does a thing. And most of them are smart enough not to ask for referrals at that moment, because that's still not enough for me to refer business to you. But they don't ever do anything else. Well, if in that moment there wasn't enough of a reason to give you a referral, what's going to happen in the future? Meaning they think that the reason they're getting a referral in that moment is because I don't know anybody that needs them, as opposed to understanding they haven't earned the right to be the person that I send referrals to. And I'm very, very interested when I talk to people in doing two things: uncovering the trust that they could or should have in me, if we're aligned, right? I'm not a good fit for everybody. And secondly would be to discover if there's credibility, trust, reliability in their direction, because when I send a referral, a connection, a lead, a resource, my reputation is somewhat on the line, right? Number one. And number two, if I want this to be reciprocal, I'm going to need to send you connections, referrals, prospects, resources. And so I'm not going to do that until I know that you have, for lack of a better word, earn the right. Now, I don't think that bar necessarily for most people is super high, but you can't just give me a business card, right? I mean, actually I had this conversation, guys like, hey, this is what I do. If you know any companies that need to hire me, let me know. And I said, this is going to come out really badly. Why would I? Well, because I do the thing, and you might know somebody that needs the thing done. I said, but why you? He said, well, do you know anybody else that does what I do? No. Well, then why not me? I said, no. Why you? What have you done besides showing me a printed business card to convince me, that you do well in that? And I'm not ever going to hire the guy to do what he does. What he does is so niche, I don't have a need for him. But should he sit with me and talk about his credentials? Should he share some reviews with me? Should he show me case studies, right? Should he ask me what it would take for me to have confidence and send him referrals? All of those things. And they just stop at, here's my card, call me if you need me. Oh, better than that, Christine. If you know somebody that needs me, have them call me. And I'm like, but why? Why would I? I don't know enough yet. And I'm not trying to be a cynic or a jerk. You can't stop there.
That is a great point, though. When we give a referral, we are essentially vouching for the other person. If you don't know anything about that person and you're going to team them up with someone, now you're in a situation where they come back and they go, oh, well, I didn't like that person because I always say I love feedback. If I introduce you to somebody you don't like, let me know. I want to know if they're not doing something. I had somebody come and said, you know what? I thought we were doing a one-on-one and all it was a sales pitch the whole time. And I was like, ooh, yeah, that's not fun. Right? Nobody's volunteering for the sales pitch.
Right. And yes, at some level you're vouching. And when I say at some level, meaning you need to be clear to what degree you're vouching for the other person, right?
Absolutely.
Meaning, right. Connections is everybody that's in your Rolodex, every card on your desk, every phone number in your phone, right? Every connection, because even LinkedIn calls them connections. So to me, that's what a connection is, right? Somebody whose contact information you have. Network is a smaller subset of those people, much smaller, still huge, but much smaller. And those are the people that will return your call. As my friend Suzanne Taylor King says, just because they're in your phone doesn't mean they will answer their phone. Right.
Right.
And, right. So when I'm introducing network to network, right. And I'll use Suzanne as an example. She sent a LinkedIn message, right? A threefer, right? Suzanne started, me and Ruben are in the thread. Daniel, Ruben, y'all both do big things together. And she was out, right? And I said, I know better than to argue with STK, LOL, and put my scheduling link in it. And Ruben said, I know better than to argue with her too, LOL. I booked. Right now, hey, Kachina, I had a great Zoom conversation just a few minutes ago with Adina Edelman, right? She serves the same sort of people you serve, but she does not sell what you sell. If you guys connect and determine that there is some chemistry and some synergy there, it's potentially the case that she could be one of your heavy key referral partners, one of your premier key referral partners. I'll leave it up to y'all to work that out and figure out what's there or not there, right? Adina, this is Kachina, the gal I was talking about on the Zoom a few minutes ago that I said I was going to introduce you to, right? So Kachina knows that there's opportunity there, right? But she knows I'm not vouching for Adina. I'm vouching for the potential.
Right. The space that they're in, you see the synergy potential, whatever it is. And I do that when I see people, I'm like, ooh, this person, right? And that, yeah, I see they have something in common that could build into something beautiful. Let me bring them together and see what can happen with that. And like you said, be clear about the level of that connection that you're bringing in, right? This is a trusted, valued member of my network, my tribe, and they need to play nice together.
Right.
It doesn't always go like it's supposed to, but every once in a while, you get one off. You're like, oh, well, that did not anticipate that one.
Well, and, now what I don't want, is Amy calling me saying, Phil didn't return my email. Okay, come on, Amy, we're all adults. Emails get lost in inboxes, right?
Follow up.
Right. Wait for Phil to tell you to step off before because she complained. She notified me because, I'm the one that introduced them. I'm like, okay, I'm not responsible for technical glitches, right?
Right.
Most emails don't ever get opened, right? So, you're going to need to do some other form of follow-up there before it becomes an issue for me. But right, like my wife is telling me that my daughter has a problem with the vendor that I introduced her to, who's a guy that I've known about 30 years, at least 20. And my wife is telling me that my daughter doesn't want to mention it to me because she's afraid it'll hurt my relationship with the vendor. And I'm like, no, I need to know this, right? Because number one, my daughter's in her 30s. I will still go down there and throw a sharp elbow on this vendor. Right? I don't have a problem with that, right? Number two, I have the relationship I can do that with. Right. I still want to use his first name here, but a lot of locals might be watching this and I'm not going to throw him under the bus. Right. Because it could just be a glitch. Right.
Right. I don't know about anybody else, but I've got 100 emails coming in a day. Right. So sometimes something gets lost and I'll tell my clients, send me a text message and tell me to go check my email so I know to look for it.
And this isn't an email thing, but it's still right. My daughter's not doing me or my buddy / vendor any favors by keeping me out of the loop, because either I can assist in getting it straight, or secondarily, I need to know that business doesn't go in his direction anymore.
Right. And then you can find someone else that you can refer him to.
And if
that's not a good fit, they don't have time.
Yep.
We have other options.
I know plenty of qualified people in that industry. Right. So, right. She's not doing me any favors by not updating me. Right. And that's a conversation I'm having, in real time right now. Like last night with my wife, she's like, your daughter's having problems and she don't want to bring them to you. And I'm like,
okay,
let me fix this. I will so fix this. But not just because she's my daughter, but because I've got a 20-year cred with this guy. And I can be like, is this really how you're going to do this? Because that's my daughter, right? You know that. I know you know that part.
Yep. Sometimes that happens. Somebody introduced me to their daughter just recently. Same kind of thing. They're like, well, just so you know, right? Understanding the expectations, back to those expectations again, right? We can do introductions, but we can't guarantee what the other person is going to do. Can we nudge once in a while? Can we try and put you in touch with people that we think have good synergy? Sure. But we cannot guarantee the results.
Right. But I do need an update, right? And I really want adults to work it out themselves, right? And I think I might have told you this story when we chatted the other day, but two of my clients, right here in the city, so I can't use first names, right? And they're both female, so I'll need female names, Betty and Sue, right? So Betty needs what Sue's offering, right? So I make sure they meet each other, right? So they schedule an appointment, they're going to meet. So a couple of weeks later, I see Betty. I'm like, hey, how'd the appointment with Sue go? She's like, Sue stood me up. I'm like, I didn't sound like Sue. Did you call her? No. If she wants what I've got, she'll call me. Did you text her? No. She's changed her mind or doesn't want to. Okay. A few days later, I see Sue. I play dumb, right? Because I know that I do not know the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
Sue, how was your appointment with Betty? Oh, Betty stood me up. Really? Yeah. Did you call her? Well, no. She wants to tell me what she's got. She'll get in touch. Did you text her? No. She's changed her mind or doesn't. I can't remember which one of them I leaned on, but I finally got one of them to call the other. One was standing inside the restaurant door. The other was standing outside. And rather than call or text in real time, and that's where I've got a real problem. I'm like, your ego is so fragile that in that moment, you weren't just going to make sure that one of them wasn't in the ladies' room or standing on the inside or circling the block because it was downtown in our city. You can set a 12:30 appointment and get there at 12:45 because you were going around the block, over and over. So, right. Why would you not in real time call or text and be like, I've got a table for us, let me know when you get here.
Oh, hey, wait, I'm here. Right. Yeah. Things that do. And it's interesting how people sometimes, like you said, are intimidated with the idea of following up. And it's all about follow-up. How many people are ready to purchase the first time you meet them? Very, very small, right? If they're interested and they express that interest, that's good. You want to follow up on that, right? And building those relationships. And I can't imagine driving all the way to a restaurant and then being like, don't see the person. I'm just going to leave now. No, I drove here. I made the trouble. I put it on my calendar. I showed up. I want to know where they're at. Do I just need to wait a few minutes? Did they get lost? Was there an emergency? Do I need to check in to make sure they're okay? Because I will be like, hey, just checking in. We had an appointment such and such time. Wanted to make sure everything's okay with you. If you need to rebook, that's fine. Right? Just want to make sure you're okay.
Relationship. Well, and I start with, I'm here at Curiosity Coffee, right? We're still on, right? Because I'm not going to go through all these things about being willing to reschedule if they're literally pulling into the parking lot, right? But if I don't hear back, then I might go, look, I get it, things are things, right? Life happens, But I mean, I missed a 90th birthday party because the text didn't come through, right? So I don't even want to assume, right, that they didn't try to text me and let me know they're 2 minutes late because that text could have just not come through. Right. Mm-hmm. A whole bunch of things. I mean, I've had people text me, call me, and I call and I go, roll the voicemail. Like I was sitting next to my phone. It never rang. So again, I'm not going to assume they didn't try to call. I'm not going to assume they didn't.
Technology happens, as much as we like to rely on it, sometimes there's technological fails. I know I sent something off to a client earlier today and I was like, wait a minute. And I'm checking my outboxes. I'm like, I don't see it here. Where did it go out in this outer space somewhere? Right. And so technology fails, but there's multiple ways to reach out to people. And there's ways to do it where you're building relationships and not being this sleazy salesperson. Right. So let's work on building those relationships. I think that's key. And right. I don't think we see enough of that today. And that's one of the many reasons why I fell in love with what you do. tell our audience a little bit more about what you do, because I know you've
Sure.
got classes coming up and you
Yeah.
have stuff going on.
No,
Talk to us.
well, and thank you, right? Because I feel like I really can help certain people, and I want to help those people. And starting in a couple of weeks, on July 13th, I'm launching a 10-week series that's a real-time coaching. It's not in person. It's real time though. It's live. It's a group coaching experience, group learning experience, and it's around how to move from casual business card exchange to consistent referral partner, right? What I call a key referral partner. And not everybody that you meet will, elevate through those, but how do you sift? And then once you've sifted, how do you pursue that, right? What is it that you do that moves people along, right? And it really appeals to two sorts of people. The guy that I spoke to the other day that's got the very niche offering, right? That he's like, yeah, if you know any businesses that need me, let me know. And I'm like, but why? Right? Meaning there's a lot of people in the world like me that could introduce him to businesses, but he needs a model for sharing with me what it looks like when people do business with them, so that I do feel comfortable going, oh, Fred, you've got a problem. You need to talk to Mike. Mike's got the answer. As opposed to just, I don't know, Mike, you're out, Fred, you're out of luck, right? I don't, figure it out on your own. And then the other part of that is people, so people that need more than their own personal network, they need to leverage the network of their networks, right? Can gain from how to transition people closer to you. And it's not a long process, but it does involve some intentionality, right? To confidently ask them for the introductions that they can provide. And the other is people that are so common that their search or quest for customers is actually so competitive that they're competitive for the referral partners themselves. And what I mean by that would be typically what comes up is mortgage loan officers, real estate agents, financial services professionals, insurance agents, right? Meaning the best way for them to get business is to be introduced by somebody else, right? A referral partner, because there are so many of all of them in every community, right? So it makes a world of difference.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I love everything you have to say, Daniel. I just got to say, you're somebody after my own heart when it comes to networking, and you get it. You understand, and that's what I love. That I know anybody that works with you is going to get that one-on-one touch of what it means to network and the best way to do it for their industry, their business. And it's very custom. One size does not fit all.
That is correct. Right. And because of that, in my group learning experience, we also include offsets of one-on-one time so that people can customize. But I teach principles more than I teach words, right? There's not magic words. There are magic principles that work, right? And, some of what some of the learning experiences people have in that, and we use very active learning cycles, by the way. This course will probably never be pre-recorded on demand online, because we're going into breakouts. We're using what we learned. We're reflecting on what we learned. It's very active learning cycles. And if you need more information about that, either find me on LinkedIn, go to my website, go to the bottom, or click, meet with me and get in a little short conversation, and we'll decide if a longer one's important. But I teach things like, how to select, right, for who you're going to pursue for a key referral partner, asking better questions, because people are not even remotely asking the best questions they can ask in terms of deciding who belongs in their network. Be prepared to coach them on how to serve you. They're not magically going to understand who your ideal clients are. Be prepared to coach them on how to coach you on how to serve them. Because if you needed some coaching on coaching them, they're going to need some coaching on coaching you. And you're looking for that mutuality, right? Introduce the right people in the right way, which is something we talked about earlier. Understand the arc of the relationship, right? Healthy people don't propose marriage on the first date, right? In my mind, there's 5 stages of a referral relationship. And the third is key referral partner. That's not even the 4th or 5th. So it's not a long jump, but you've got to get past that business card exchange, right? And over to at least stage 3 with some people for key referral partners, right? How to ask correctly, right? Which goes all the way to what you said earlier about expectations, meaning asking is super easy when you've laid the groundwork all the way up until then. But if asking sounds like something that's catching them by surprise or catching you by surprise, Christine's been a, business connection of mine now for about 8 months. I guess it's probably about time for me to go ask for referrals, right? I'm not doing it in the right mindset. I'm like, hey, Christine, let's do lunch again soon. You're like, okay. Hey, who you know that I need to know? You're like, whoa, that came out of nowhere, right? But if the whole thing's been set up from the beginning that when we meet, we're going to discuss who should I introduce you to and who should you introduce me to, then all of those conversations go better.
Right. When we think about the sales cycle, just if you're going to sell something, same thing for the networking cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Building those relationships to the point where it's completely natural and it makes sense to give those connections to each other, right? And to expand your networks together. So, my goodness, I love having you here, Daniel. We're going to have you come back and play again because I think what we share is important. I think it really helps make a difference for people that are really trying to build those mission-driven organizations, those mission-driven businesses, those that want to do good in the world and want to help people. They need help with this. And that's
And even just people that prefer quality over quantity, that prefer relationships to transactions, right? Anybody that's in a role where they do a thing, but they also have to sell the thing and they don't like the part where they have to sell the thing and they want to do as little selling as possible, but they still want to have people buy the thing.
Yeah.
Right. I can show people, how to create roughly 10 key referral partners that throw off roughly one referral every 60 days, which doesn't sound like a much, but that's 10 people times 6 a year. That's 60 qualified, and those are two different words, warm introductions. So the people that I can serve best with this course called Ninja Network Building Skills is the people for whom 60 qualified warm introductions would move the needle in their business, right?
Absolutely. Oh, I'm excited. All right. One more time. Tell everybody how to get a hold of you if they want to talk to you more about this and they're saying, you know what, I want to build these relationships. I want to have more of that relationship style in my business. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, my website, danielpatrickandrews.com. My full name, if you just Google it, will return 1 million hits of people that are not me. It is a bombastic Australian prime minister who loves his name in the press. So you would have to go through 1 million search results before you found me. I had to buy my own name as URL, danielpatrickandrews.com. On LinkedIn, it's blah, 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 // NIA Southeast. And you can find me there. Either one of those, you can get to my link to book a short conversation with me. I think a short conversation is great. They're a lot of fun. But you and I can then determine if a longer conversation around whether or not Ninja could support you, what your efforts are. But anybody for whom approximately anywhere from 30 to 90 qualified warm introductions per year, right, would make a difference in your world, I can show you how to create that. I had one guy say, I couldn't handle 60. And I said, yeah, you can. Because you're either going to raise your rates, right? Or you're going to scale up and hire people to assist, or you're simply going to just be more selective about who you work with and only work with your favorite people. So yes, you could handle 60. Now, are you going to do business with all 60? I don't know. But 60 would make an impact in your business, right? Wouldn't you want the choice to raise your rate, scale, or simply fire some of your least favorite clients and keep the rest? Sure. So.
Exactly. Let's build those relationships, a lot more effective, a lot more fun than just doing spam emails that nobody ever wants to open, or those spam text messages and all the other things. This is a great opportunity to build real relationships with real people that actually want to work with you. Thanks. To me, that's a win. That's your ideal client right there.
And I appreciate the work you do in the world, right? You and I are both on a quest to change people's perspective from transactions to relationships. We definitely share that in common. Right.
Oh,
we use
absolutely.
Sometimes, but that's why we resonate, and that's why we've got so much energy together.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Look forward to having you on again. Thank you so much for coming to play with us today, Daniel, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks, y'all.